Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Jason, I have a 31-year-old friend who is interested in strength training. He has a rounded upper back since childhood. He served 10 years in the Army and is an avid runner, so he is physically able to exercise. I have recommended a 4 times a week 5x5 consisting of dips, front squats, chin-ups, strict press, trap bar deadlifts. Do you have any recommendations? No, any basic novice program is fine. I'm not sure that those would be the exercises I would pick, but if he's comfortable with them and you're comfortable coaching them for him, then by all means carry on. Now, as far as the rounded upper back goes, that's never stopped anyone from winning multiple gold medals in the Olympics. That's just the natural curvature of some people's back. Silly people think that it has to do with bad posture. That's just people's personal anatomy. Plenty of people have it. Plenty of elite level athletes, plenty of elite level power lifters, plenty of Olympic gold medalists and Super Bowl winners have this. And it has never prevented anyone, to my knowledge, from being able to deadlift 700 or 800 pounds or from winning a gold medal. You might want to ask Michael Phelps about that. Not the problem. Just monitoring, make sure everything's good. As you probably know, as you're a seasoned lifter yourself, when dealing with people, depending upon what they did, who were in the military, he's already an avid runner, right? You do have to watch former military people, depending upon what they did in the military, because they will tend to overtrain. And it's because oftentimes what they go through in the military, depending on how they serve, you will find some of them were taught to keep pushing way beyond their limits, because again, that's part of the process for certain jobs there. So just be aware of that tendency when dealing with someone, so that he doesn't go way beyond his limits and keep pushing through things that he shouldn't and end up tear something. That's usually the only negative thing I've noticed sometimes when coaching veterans. Just something to be aware of. Some of them are prone to do that, and it's because it's in their nature due to what they went through while in the service. But that aside, give it a go. That upper rounded back isn't going to be a problem. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. Been running the cutting version of your novice program for the past couple of months on a recomp, and I've made slow, steady gains. I'm an intermediate lifter who competes in combat sports, so this program fits my schedule nicely. The issue I have is with the recovery due to sport-specific training I do. I find some days I have to reduce the weight on compound lifts. Would it be feasible to run your program on a heavy, medium, light basis and progress once per week on the main lifts? Keep in mind, I'm not looking for the fastest results as I'm recomping, and I expect the gains to be slower. I like this program and would prefer to keep running it. Please let me know what your thoughts on this. Cheers, coach. No, that's perfectly fine, considering that strength training is not your primary goal. It's a secondary goal to help you with your main sport and to put on some extra muscle. And again, you're in a combat sport. I can absolutely understand, probably with all the conditioning you go through, that running at full steam isn't going to work. If you want to do a heavy, medium, light, and just rotate the AB the same way so that they end up each one every 2 weeks get hit in the same rotation, go ahead and run the AB as it is. And if you want to do a heavy day to where you try to progress on Mondays and then reduce the weight 20% on Wednesday and only a 10% on Friday, so that you can balance it with all your conditioning and sport-specific work, like you said, a heavy, medium, light, I think for your goals, that should be okay. I think you'll be okay doing that. That's what I would probably do if you want to stay on that program and shift it into an intermediate program for someone in your specific situation. I think that's actually a good way to do it. It actually sounds like you've been doing a bit of reading on programming yourself. And so I'm just going to go ahead and back what you decided to try to do. I think that will work out nicely for you. So go for it. All right, next question. Jason, in your opinion, which exercises would help someone achieve the V-taper look? Would a heavy focus on chin-ups and overhead press be enough? Also, should one reduce the volume of squats and deads to achieve this goal? Thank you. Is this enough to achieve the V-taper look? Yes, if you get strong enough at the chin-up and the overhead press, and you get your waist small enough from getting your body fat low enough, you will absolutely develop a V-taper. If you do not have that look yet, you need to get stronger on these 2 exercises. But yes, that will absolutely get the job done. Do you need to decrease the volume on your squats and deadlifts? No. As long as you're recovering from all of it, why? Go ahead and get stronger. Go ahead and get stronger. No downside to getting stronger on your squat and deadlift unless you need more volume on those other 2 lifts, in which case, you know what I said in the last video talking about prioritizing stuff? Slow your progression down. If you have an area of the body or a lift that you want to prioritize, coast for a bit on the ones that you don't care about as much. If you say you're squatting 300 for 5 and you're comfortable staying there for a little while you work more on your overhead press and your chin-ups, then just stay at 300 for 5. Spend 2 or 3 months not trying to add any weight to the bar. Just maintain what you have, and then when you're more balanced to where you want to be, start progressing again. Problem solved. All right, next question. Do you think there's any value to doubling back volume as some people prescribe? The argument being benefits from more back size, combating internal rotation from pressing movements and posture. For instance, squat 5x5, bench 5x5, rows 5x8 through 10. Do I think there's merit to this? No, unless you're anterior dominant. If you're anterior dominant because you've been doing tons of benching and stuff while neglecting your back, then maybe. But if you're on a balanced program, there's no need to do this. First of all, if you're overhead pressing correctly with a standing press, and this is something I agree with Ripto on, that alone will balance out a lot of your concerns of injuries on the shoulders. As far as everything else goes, all your other stuff builds your back. Squats build your lats. Overhead pressing even helps a little bit. Deadlifts build your lats. A lot of other movements help build these areas. If you're on a balanced program, your back is going to be developing maximally anyways. You shouldn't need extra volume, and that's where people mess up. If you're already doing a variety of exercises and you're progressing well on them, what causes muscle growth? Progression. Just adding mindless volume without ensuring progress doesn't put more size on you. Just adding those extra sets isn't going to put as much back size on in the long term as just getting stronger will. So if it's coming at the expense of adding weight to the bar, that extra volume isn't going to account for a whole lot. Yes, I know volume is a factor in hypertrophy, but not to that degree. So you're already doing plenty of stuff for your back. Just get really strong on your pulling movements, and it will balance out. The only time I might consider a difference is if a guy was a bench monkey for their first 2-3 years in the gym and didn't do enough back work, and maybe they didn't squat or deadlift much either, then they might need to spend a few months balancing it out. But if you didn't do that, there should be no need to do this. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The back is not that hard to develop. Do a lot of heavy pulling. And big compounds in general, standing presses, dips, all that stuff. All these things will contribute to your overall back development, not just your chin-ups and rows. But yeah, you do need to get stronger at your chin-ups and rows too. All right, next question. Hey coach, I normally find that when doing my top heavy set of deadlifts for 5 reps, the first rep feels much harder and slower than the following reps. I restart from a dead stop. What's that about? Am I not warming up enough? I only deadlift after squats and bench, by the way, if that's a factor. You're warming up just fine. The problem is that you're doing low volume deadlifting with rep work. That's good for general strength, because here's what it comes down to. Does it matter how heavy it feels, or does it matter that you complete the reps with good form? It doesn't matter how it feels. The problem is that you do more reps than you do singles. You don't do many first reps. Every time you come up to a deadlift, you're doing one heavy set of 5. You're used to doing reps. So to you, the second and the third rep feel normal because it's a 5 rep set. They're not that hard if you can do 5 reps. But the first rep, you're getting into position, you're setting up. And then on the subsequent reps, you're used to doing that and getting into a better position. For power lifters, you need to get good at a max, so that first rep matters. In other words, building to a heavy 5 rep set works good for building general strength in novices, right? And even intermediates. It will not make you a good power lifter. To be a good power lifter, you're going to have to do sets across, and you're going to have to drop down to 3 reps or less. In fact, you're going to need to practice some heavy singles so that you get used to walking up to the bar and pulling as heavy as you can on the first rep. Because that's what you haven't trained to do with a general strength program. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all need general strength, but it comes down to the point. People stupidly assume that any sort of heavy deadlift is powerlifting. That is absolutely not true. In fact, doing top-end 5-rep sets of the deadlift will not make you a good power lifter. It won't make you as good as you could be as a power lifter because you don't get many first reps in. You don't get that training effect you need of walking up to the bar and pulling without other reps to get your groove down immediately before, which is what you've trained yourself to do. The other is just general strength and size. So therein lies the difference. That's what's going on. It's the way you're training. And understand there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not going to make you good at pulling a 1-rep max. It'll build you a base that you can later use to get good at it, but you're not going to have it right now. That's okay. It's about prioritizing your goals in different steps and phases. All right, next question and last question of the week. If you were on a mission to build up your traps as much as possible, which exercises would you focus on and how much weekly volume? Thanks, coach. I don't like this question, and here's why. I'm going to go back to what we said in the rack pull discussion where I agreed with Bugenhagen. Why would you want only your traps to grow? Name for me one person out there, because I'm going to assume you want your traps to grow maximally for some aesthetic goal. Name one person out there who looks great with massive traps and no shoulders and no upper chest. Nobody. It looks terrible. It destroys your aesthetics. If you care about that sort of thing, and I'm going to assume a lot of you young guys do, why in the world would you ever want just your traps to grow or for them to grow out of proportion with the rest of your shoulder girdle? You're going to look like shit. Now, if you're a power lifter, you don't care about that. I don't particularly care about it. But I wouldn't want my traps to grow outside of their ability to improve my deadlift or my overhead press, in which case I would deadlift and overhead press more. But that part aside, the joking aside, because that wasn't really a joke, but it was, what exercises build traps the best? Overhead press, rows, shrugs, cleans, right? That's what you would do, and the shrugs are optional. Shrugs are there when you finally just go, this other stuff, maybe my traps are lagging a little bit. Right? So what would I do to the average person who wants their traps to grow? I would get as strong as possible on rows and strict standing presses. That's what I would do. You guys have seen the tank top front that we did recently on my Instagram. And you've seen my back video Brittany took of me making coffee in the kitchen, shirtless, right? I don't have overwhelming traps that overpower the rest of my physique. It's all balanced with my back and shoulders. And that comes from rowing and overhead pressing. Because again, you need to balance all of that. You want your back to be balanced with your traps, not just to build traps, I would assume. And if you are wanting a little bit more out of balance, you still need to do those other lifts, get as strong as you can on them, and then throw some heavy shrugs in. And how often? As often as you can recover and as heavy as you can get away with. Get as strong as possible on those lifts. It's not rocket science. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.